Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Embodied Transformation podcast, coming to you live from 4 bazillion degrees, that is a technically accurate term, in the UK. So, each morning I connect into my guides, I do my witchy rituals, I do my cards, I do my sound bowl, and I have 2 crystal balls, an amethyst crystal ball and a clear quartz crystal ball. And the guidance this morning was very clear. Even though I'm already recording a podcast this afternoon with the wonderful Michael Crowley, you'll get to enjoy that one next time. The guidance was clear. You need to come and do a podcast and you need to share vulnerably about some of the experiences that you have had and the decisions that you have made in the past 8 years where you outsourced your power, where you were looking for someone to save you, and where I don't want to call them mistakes because they all led me to here, but where you did things hoping that looking for an answer outside of you, and ultimately how all of those experiences allowed me to connect back into myself, my intuition, to trust myself, and to use a coachy phrase, step into my power. And why is this important? This is so important because so often we feel drawn to leaving our corporate jobs because we don't enjoy the systems that we're in. We're like, this system is anti-life, it's anti-health. I don't want to be in this system. I don't want to be told what to do anymore. I'm going to start my own business. And then we start our own business and we do the exact same thing in our own business, outsourcing our power, looking for somebody else to give us the answers and the strategies and the accolades or whatever it is that we are not giving ourselves. And ultimately, if you are it worked for some people, right? But if you are a soul-led, mission-led leader here to share like a unique market of one offering in the world and to be a bit disruptive and maybe to lead a movement or a revolution, then trying to follow somebody else's formula for somebody else's system, for somebody else's rule book and paradigm in order to get there. I mean, you can hear when I say it out loud, like it's not going to work, is it? And yet we try, right? I tried for a really, really long time. So what I want to do today is I want to dive into some of those experiences because I also want to normalize some of those decisions on the path back to finding our truth and finding someone who can support us to be all of who we are. So I gently started my business in about April of 2019. I was still very much recovering from burnout at this point, and I did do a business mastermind. And it was one of those experiences where you're like, I'm still in my coach training. So I did a full year diploma for my first bit of coach training, which started in the November of 2018. So I'm like, I'm still very much in the midst of my coach training right now. And I've paid you £8,000, which is what, $11,000 or something. And your coaching is not as good as my coaching. Like, how does that work? How does that work? But I knew like there was a part of me that knew I wouldn't support to do this work. And then I sort of was drawn towards the shiny marketing and the fancy offers and, the person that was attracting a lot of attention and that I thought was going to be able to support me. Now, ultimately, once the pandemic hit, and some of the in-person stuff fell away, I was actually able to access my healthy no and my response and went and said, I actually don't want to continue in this space. Because I had done the option where it also included like loads of one-on-one stuff and a retreat, and I was like, I'm out. So this was my first foray into like experiencing business coaching and experiencing some of like that world. And so then fast forward to 2020, I'm like, I was going to say I'm done with business coaching, but I wasn't, right. So the next thing that happens is I join a lower ticket group that is designed to help life coaches make money. Again, like effective, useful, good. All these programs worked, right? That's one of the things I think is really important to notice. All of these programs worked. And one of the things I noticed in that space was it seemed like the people in the next level up were getting more exposure and more visibility, and they were really part of like the cool kids club. And at this point in my journey, I was still really battling with I don't belong, I don't fit in, where's my tribe? Like I'm different, I'm weird. And so I desperately just wanted a space where essentially I wanted a seat at the cool kids table, right? If I was going to not try and like jazz it up, I wanted to be in the cool kids club because I thought that that was the thing that was going to make a difference. And so at the end of that year, I had made about £50,000, £55,000 in 2020. And I invested $25,000, which is about £18,000. So I invested about 18,000 of my 54,000 in this mastermind. And again, like nothing wrong really with the mastermind, except for, I mean, there were nearly 100 people in there, so not a mastermind. And like, but look, it was fine. I didn't really engage with it. Partly that was my fault, partly that was how it was structured. But ultimately, I joined that space because I didn't trust myself and I thought I needed to be in like the cool kids club in order to belong and fit in and really make it in the coaching industry. Now, all of these things worked, right? So I hit six figures in 2021, 2022, 2023, and on we go, right? But I was outsourcing. I was still outsourcing my power. So the thing that I did in the 25K mastermind, the £18,000 mastermind, was I decided to try and follow her simple offer protocol and to have a like one payment only lifetime access group. And that group was called An Extraordinary Life. And I think the price to begin with was something like £1,500. It went up to £3,000 in the end. But you basically you paid once and you had lifetime membership. But what I hadn't worked through at this point was the fact that I didn't feel safe to hold big groups. So 10 people joined and 10 people stayed. So then all of a sudden, 10 people are having like mastermind level support and experience for £1,500. Like there's a disconnect there. And as I started to do more nervous system and body work and train more in the somatics and that side of things, that group did not want that work. They weren't in a space, not everyone in the group, but most people in that group did not want that work. They were not in a space where they were able to meet me at my current level of skill set, consciousness, all of the rest of it. And so then ultimately I had to go through the process of ending that group. So this is like outsource number one. So I changed my offer. Right, I was doing really well. I loved doing groups. I love doing short-term groups and I love doing one-on-one, right? I was like, no, I'm going to change my entire business model to be this one lifetime offer because this is what this coach did and it seemed like a good idea, right? So completely outsourcing my power. Simultaneously, at the start of 2021, I met, and still now, despite what I'm about to say, one of the people that has had the most profoundly positive impact on me and my life, and that was my nervous system and trauma coach. And we worked together for 18 months. In the August of 2021, I signed up to do her 10-month certification. And in the August of 2022, she invited me to support her to facilitate the embodiment sessions in her certification because of how much I had integrated and embodied the work via a combination of the one-on-one work that I did with her and then the work that I'd done throughout our certification together. And then towards the end of 2022, she had a trying to think what the correct term was. Essentially, she'd been probably quite new age spiritual before. And then she had, I think, do we call it a Christian awakening? Anyway, essentially, she felt called, she felt drawn back to God and Jesus and the Bible. No problem with this, right? no problem. Everyone gets to have their own beliefs. Everyone's beliefs gets to change at a point in time. And where I had got to in my own path, coming home to myself, which she had deeply supported me with, was I felt drawn to nature and animals and the stars and the planets and astrology, and, very much what I would now call a green witch. And so when I said this to her, I was like, she was suggesting that I should read the Bible, and possibly I should, but I still haven't. I was raised a Catholic. I walked away from that when I was about 16. And I haven't felt drawn back, right? If at some point I feel drawn back, happy days. But her response to me sharing where I felt the most connected to myself and my divinity and consciousness and a higher power was to share a Bible passage with me that essentially said that people who worshipped animals and nature instead of Jesus or God were like godless people. It's also got some like not very, I think, okay passages in there about homosexuality. And honestly, it just did a complete number on me because I was like, you are the person who has allowed me to come home to myself, to connect to my self-trust, to connect to my intuition, to realize who I am, to release all of these fears, all of this deep, deep, like childhood developmental trauma, to help me to be able to say, it's okay to be me and all of the rest of it. But now you are telling me that quite a lot of the things that we did together, because we did do work around like human design and gene keys as the clock switches to 11:11, of course, and astrology and clearings. And she had like energetics workers come in and do things with us and all of these like incredible different spiritual tools. All of a sudden, she was like, that's all bad. That's all bad. It's in the Bible. It's bad. And later, she even went as far as to say that she was going to move away from somatic experiencing, which was the modality that she drew from. So, Peter Levine's model, because part of that modality had come to Peter Levine in a dream. And so, this all happened at the start of 2023. And it rocked me. It really, really, really rocked me. I was also in a mastermind with her at that point, doing advanced embodied healing work. And again, just this experience of feeling let down and not wanting to be in the space anymore, but then also partly sort of second guessing like the work that I'd done and the experiences that I had and the beliefs that I had. Now that experience actually allowed me, subject to the next caveat, allowed me to deepen into my self-trust of like, I actually don't feel drawn to organized religion. Bible, fine, but is the Bible in its current form, the Bible in the original form? Are we just given what we want to be given? Like I'd already started to really question and critically think about what we were fed versus what was true or what was my truth. Okay. So again, there's lots of outsourcing my power, but also starting to reconnect back into like my own intuition, my own thoughts, my own beliefs. Then in about April of 20, so this was about the February of 2023. In April of 2023, a coach that had been following me for quite a while, commenting on my posts, engaging with me, invited me to a masterclass called Heart Wide Open. Right. And I was like, my entire body was like, this is exactly what I need. I need like heart wide open person. And I went to this masterclass, and the masterclass was great. And as I do, because I like to be deeply supported, I generally like to put myself into like the highest level space that I can be accepted into. I'm not really interested in the like, I'll do the cheap option. I'm like, give me all of the support. And that's one of the beautiful things that has come through from this journey. But then it's like, but what is the support that I am actually going towards? So I do the 12-month sign up to this coach's like higher level space, and then very quickly purchase some one-on-one on top of that. And to begin with, it was fine. But what I recognized over time is the space just became more and more toxic, right? She became more and more angry. And there were quite a lot of narcissistic traits that were being displayed. And I still had a therapist at the time. And I took this to my therapist and I sort of talked him through the whole process. And at this point, we're probably towards the end of 2023, start of 2024. I'd already paid for a second year, like really early, like 6 months in, I'd already paid for a second year. I'd done loads of one-on-one. So I'm like $40,000 in deep with this coach. Anyway, so the long and short of that one was, again, I was like, how have I found myself in another one of these spaces? And my coach was brilliant. He was like, look, you've got like some narcissistic abuse in your past. And actually this is probably going to help you to work through some of this. And it did. But also, even if you've already paid for it, like it's time to really question, do I want to be in this space? And ultimately I left that space early. So there were just so many different experiences and places where I saw validation or answers or things outside of me, and I didn't quite have that intuition and connection to myself to be able to, for want of a better term, sniff out the bullshit. But ultimately, all of those different pieces and working through the trauma of all of those different pieces, right? So I could really take responsibility for like, okay, well, what was it that was driving me to go into that space, and what was driving me to go into that space, and etc., etc. Like, and I still today would work with the trauma and somatic person. Um, would I respond differently to how she was? From this place, I would. But at that point, I wasn't sufficiently in my body to be able to deal with her views on my spirituality, because I was still outsourcing my power to her because she was the one that had saved me, right? So you can see how all these like little pieces come together. And then we're left with a choice, right? Because I'm sharing this with you guys because so many people who joined the coaching industry have had these similar experiences. And for many of them, it has left them jaded. It has left them actually not getting support anymore because they've lost their trust and faith that the kind of support that they need is available. And so then I look at, if we're going to look from a lens of like, how did this all happen for me? Right. So then I look at, okay, so these are the things that happened to me. So what? Like, how were these vital in my life journey? So I actually started a mastermind at the end of 2023 called Your Way, right? And it was all about actually how do we create the self-trust for people that allows them to do things in their way. Now, that was generally it was focused on the individual, but most people in there were still employees, and it was not a spiritual space. And as I had my spiritual awakening, I wanted to bring more spiritual work in. I was very conscious of the experience that I had had before. So I was like, I can't turn, obviously, I could have done whatever I wanted. It didn't feel ethical for me to turn that space into a spiritual space. But also, the more the work I did to sort of look at systems and how things are set up and how things very deliberately set up to disconnect us from ourselves, the more I also believed that or could see that my work was very much moving away from supporting people to thrive in their corporate jobs and very much towards those people that felt drawn to have a soul-led mission that did not involve outsourcing all of their time to something that did not in any way light up their soul or their hearts. But the seed was planted right at the end of 2023 with the Your Way Mastermind, and I knew, because I didn't want anyone else to ever have that experience of going into a space and being told that they weren't enough, that they didn't look the right way, that they weren't acting the right way, that their personality was wrong. And these were all things that I was seeing in these spaces. And it's like, well, no, because if we're all here as individual, unique people with our own magic to share, like there are people out there for all of us. And it's when we try to minimize ourselves or contort ourselves into like, whatever influencer looking pretzel, that actually the people that are trying to find us can no longer hear us because we again are just being another version of everybody else, which is not what people need. So there was the Your Way Mastermind, but then that very much morphed into, at the end of 2024, Wealthy Witches. It was like, what am I actually really here to do? Right? Because I want to take those threads of people doing things their way, but also I want to bring my spirituality, I want to bring my magic, and I want to be very upfront and center, actually, that I am witchy and I do rituals and I do connect into guidance and nature, and I love my oracle cards and I love my crystals, and I believe in energy and working with energy and sound healing, and I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, right? But I also deeply believe in health and supporting ourselves to be healthy. And what does that look like? And fundamentally overarching it all is, how do we support our human bodies to feel safe to exist in a human body and do the work that we came here to do, live the lives that we came here to live? And so Wealthy Witches was born. And the reason I'm sharing this backstory today is because of something that I won't get into because it's not my story to share, but I'm just very, very aware that there are still lots of spaces with very shiny marketing where people go in and they get gaslit, and it's all about spiritual bypassing and not looking at the real work. And so again, they can feel disillusioned, right? But what people really need is a space where they can be seen and held. Like the people that are really deeply willing to do the work, they're like, I know I've got some shit going on here. Like, I know there's some unresolved trauma in my body. I know my nervous system reacts in a certain way. Some visibility is fine. Some visibility makes me feel absolutely shit scared. But I know, because there is this pull, that I am here to do something bigger than me and the mission is more important. And this for me was the turning point, right? And this is the crux of this episode. All of the time, I was looking for someone else to fix me or looking for a certain number in my bank account to validate my right to exist and my worthiness as a human, right? I had one experience. But when I connected into the importance of the Wealthy Witches Mastermind to empower the people who are actually here to come and make a difference, to be seen, to be more visible, to be able to do things, but to be able to do things in their way, to help them pull out of themselves without all of the rules and the shoulds that we get given out there, what it is that they want to do and how they want to do it, to help them work through the fears, the money stuff, the visibility stuff, power stuff, right? Whoever's naturally is born with a like really healthy relationship with being in our power, to harness those psychic gifts and to really truly live, like to feel turned on by life, right? To recognize how important that work was, but not just through this like intellectual lens, but through this lens of like the impact it had had on me to not have a space like that, right? And when I look back now, if I'd had a whole series of incredible, amazing business coaches and business coaching experiences, and none of it had been jarring and none of it had felt like I had to abandon myself, would I have felt drawn to bring something quite so disruptive as Wealthy Witches into the collective? And the answer is probably no, right? And then the same thing with the certification. If I hadn't had all of these experiences of like, hang on a minute, there are a lot of coaches out there and a lot of therapists out there. Like, we're not going to get onto therapists today, but like, yes, and a lot of facilitators out there that have got no fucking clue how to support someone with embodied transformation, to hold all of a person, to hold all of the different parts of a person without gaslighting them or bypassing or getting stuck in their own stories or switching off or shutting down or finding it all far too draining, right? we have an absolute void. And what I was seeing in the coaching industry was coaches leaving because they were disillusioned with it. Coaches no longer calling themselves coaches because they didn't want to be associated with coaches. And again, I reached this crunch point of like, right, so what are my options here? And it was very, very clear the guidance that came through. It's like you are here to disrupt the coaching industry, just like you are here to disrupt I mean, I actually wouldn't call Wealthy Witches a business mastermind, but you know what I mean. To disrupt that sector of the industry with something for the conscious soul-led leaders that really want a space to do the real work in a small group, an actual mastermind. Then it was very clear again of, okay, so now I'm being called to disrupt the entire coaching industry by creating a certification that actually allows people to do this work by first doing the work on themselves, because that's half of the problem out there. People have not done their own work. And so then we can set this new standard of people who are able to hold and support people effectively, and the people who are able to hold and support people effectively feeling safe to have the visibility and the impact and the income that they desire, so that together we create this ecosystem where over time the industry shifts because more coaches are embodied and in their bodies and connected to their intuition, so less likely to make some of those investments all the time, right? Because some of these people are very, very clever sociopath, narcissistic personality types, right? But generally, right, so we can start to feel more into the nudges, but also a space where more people can go to actually receive the support that we deserve to receive. So I'm going to sort of wrap up now, but I really wanted to share, right, some of my journey because it would have been very, very easy for me at several points in this to either, number one, completely swear off having support ever again. We are not meant to do this work alone, right? Or leave the industry altogether, or be the person that just turns her entire business into slagging off other coaches. Also not helpful. Not helpful. Or I could step into my power, and look at what is all of this trying to show me and what wants to come through me from here. And that was the Wealthy Witches Soul Expansion Mastermind and the Embodied Transformation Certification. And so the question for you is, what is it that is trying to come through you? And how has your life path and experience to date shaped that and what you are here to do? Now, this is work that we do inside Wealthy Witches because I think it's so important to look at how we got here. We look at our hero's journey or our heroine's journey. There is a distinction. We'll not get into it now. But then really, really getting clear on what am I here to do? Who am I here to help? Why is what I do so important? Why is what I do so valuable? And then connecting into the life force energy of that, of the importance of that. Because when you are connected into the life force energy of your soul mission and the work that you are here to do, everything will naturally rearrange itself around you to bring it to life. But first of all, you have to have the connection. You also have to have the desire. So if Wealthy Witches is calling you, the next group starts officially a week today on the 23rd of July. If you are listening to this after the 23rd of July, please reach out to me because I will allow people in if there is space for a couple of weeks afterwards. So the group is capped at 10. Men and women are welcome. I actually love the blend in a group. I know there's so many spaces out there that are women only, but I think there is something really magical that happens with a blend of conscious leaders, right? And I would love to support you. I would love to support you because I also want you to understand and experience and appreciate that when you have support, when you are seen and held and celebrated to be all of who you are and feel safe to be all of who you are, everything unravels so much more easily. Now, do I promise to be a perfect coach who has all the answers? First of all, I don't have all the answers. You do, but I will support you to believe that and find them. And second of all, no, I don't think I am a perfect coach. But do you know what? If I fuck up, I will apologize and I will own it. And I will not gaslight you. I will not tell you that it's your fault or that you aren't trying hard enough or that you aren't working hard enough or you just need to change your thoughts. So, Wealthy Witches, 10 leaders. We start a week today. And I would love to have you in there. You will find information on the Wealthy Witches Mastermind and the Embodied Transformation Certification in the show notes. If you have not done my free masterclass yet, The Art of Embodied Transformation, recommend you download that. See what happens, see what you notice. And as ever, the invitation is for you to follow the nudges and allow the past to show you what you need in the future, but not to shut you down from what you need in the future, which is also why we do a lot of trauma, somatic and healing work inside Wealthy Witches, because sometimes that is what is required. All right, reach out to me, book a call, however you want to get in touch, because it is time. And if you want your 90-minute one-on-one that's included before we kick off, I mean, I'd get in touch quick. I mean, we can do it once we start, but ideally we'd do it before. So anyway, I will see you next time. As I said at the start, I will be with Michael Crowley, who is awesome. So you can look forward to that one. And I wish you all a beautiful rest of your day. Ciao for now.